Hello, my name is Mary Schlueter, and I'll be presenting the webinar on Circle of Friends Peer-Mediated Intervention. This is part 2 in a 2-part webinar series, and it's assumed that you've already watched the first webinar in this series. In the first webinar in the series, we explored the program background along with the evidence base for this intervention. We learned the basic structure of implementing Circle of Friends, and we compared different models. In part 2 of the webinar, we'll be getting into learning what you do at meetings, how to facilitate meetings, what your focus is. We will explore obstacles and possible solutions to problems that might arise, and we will also share with you next steps, other forms of support for your group so that you'll know where to take it from here. There are several different goals for all Circle of Friends groups, and we'll be getting into the specifics of each of these. One of the things that we want to do is to build community so that we develop trust and rapport and positive relationships among the students. We want to provide awareness and understanding of autism for the peer mentors so that they understand a little bit better what makes that focused student tick and why they behave the way that they do. We want to provide feedback opportunities so that the peers can tell you how things are going. We will teach social skills at our meetings. And finally, we always want to provide social interaction opportunities for our kids. Some facilitators choose to use some of the meetings and to run them as peer-only meetings. That means that the focus student does not come to those meetings. Usually that might be 1 out of every 4. You don't want to do too many of them because obviously the purpose of the group is so that the focus student can get together and interact with the other students. So you want to make sure that the majority of your meetings have the child there. But some facilitators choose to just do maybe 1 out of every 4 where the focus student does not come. At those meetings, they'll share successes and challenges. So for example, what's going well, when you are interacting with Johnny in the hallway or in the cafeteria. Last week you said that you were going to eat lunch with him. How is that working out? For the challenges, you're able to then role play with the peers. So for example, if they said, I went up to John and talked to him and he didn't say anything back to me, then you could practice with them how to prompt John. Hey, John, I just brought up a big 12. I asked you about your pets. Do you have any dogs? Or maybe Johnny's going on in a one-sided conversation, and that's the challenge that the peers are reporting back to you at that peer-only meeting, and you can recommend what they can say instead. So, for example, they could say back to John, hey, I asked you about your weekend, now it's your turn to ask me about mine. You can also do additional autism awareness at these peer-only meetings. Now, I will do awareness with my focus students in attendance as well at those meetings too, but you can do even more of those if you feel that you have a need in your particular situation at those peer-only meetings. Another element of communication is letting the kids know when the meetings are so that they actually remember to show up. This isn't as much of an issue in the elementary level when kids tend to spend more of their day in a particular classroom altogether. But with middle school and high school kids, they can tend to be in different classrooms with different schedules throughout the day, and they are very busy and they become forgetful. So there's several different ways that you can communicate when the meetings are so that the kids know what's going on. We have a bulletin board outside our classrooms with events. I also make sure our meetings are on Thursday mornings. I make sure that I get them in the bulletin every day. The bulletin goes out into the kids' email automatically. Some of our homeroom teachers read the emails to their students, so that's another way that you might catch them. This year I started a Google Classroom. We use that throughout our building, so I started Google Classroom for Circle of Friends, and so I send out reminders there. You can use Instant Messenger, you can do flyers, and you can use social media. There's several different ways to communicate, but you want to make sure that your kids know when the meetings are. Now that you've got your kids at the meeting, it's time for community building. Sometimes with the makeup of your groups, you may have kids who know each other already, but sometimes you have new kids and kids that don't know each other very well at all. So I like to start with strengths and challenges lessons. We all have strengths, we all have challenges. In the first picture on the left, the kids are doing cartoon, like a comic strip and first of all, they're facilitating conversation by talking about things that they like to do in their free time, what their hobbies are, things they're good at, and things that they struggle with. And they're making group drawings of those based on their conversations. In the second drawing, one group did Circle of Friends Snapchat selfies. So they gathered information and took a picture and put it up on the wall. I thought this was pretty creative. In the third picture, the kids are doing an exercise where they're walking around within the group until they find someone who has something in common with them. In the first picture here, the kids were partnered up and they were given instructions, drawing instructions on how to create a specific picture, but they couldn't watch. They had to go by the words that their partner used, and they got a kick out of what the drawings looked like in the end. It was a fun community building activity for them. In the second activity, the kids were partnered up. At this time, they were given locations around the school building, and the partner that wasn't blindfolded had to give verbal directions and instructions such that they could get where they needed to get, but that the blindfolded person did not walk into the wall or the table or any other obstacle. This getting to know you activity was designed for the kids to get to know each other in the group better, but also to promote getting to know each other at a wider venue in the whole school building. And the way that they did it was this. They made videos of each other. They gave their names, talked about what their strengths and challenges were, what they like to do in their free time, anything that they wanted to share so that somebody else could get to know who they were. We uploaded these into their YouTube channels, and we made these QR codes, and then we put them all around the building. So all the kids had to do was hold their phones up. They have a QR reader on their phones, and all of our students have phones now. So they held the QR reader on their phone up to these codes, and then the video would play. And so we put these all over the school building. So sure, our kids that are in Circle of Friends watch the videos, but so did all the other kids, maybe not all, but kids throughout the day in our building that were interested. And it was, there was a lot of interest in this project. They also could watch the videos and learn about these students. We also had our teachers do it too. So it was students and staff. So this turned out to be a very worthwhile activity. Another meeting goal is to provide awareness for your students, awareness and acceptance of differences. In this particular slide, you can see one of our girls with cerebral palsy is talking about what life is like for her and how it is to navigate with a wheelchair and some of the struggles that she has had. We provide awareness of autism at some of our meetings, but we don't restrict our awareness to just autism. Different people have different things. So we have had kids share learning disabilities, ADHD. Some of our kids have had some mental health struggles. And so it's not limited to any particular type of special need or challenge. And sometimes the kids want to lead, and that's fine. There are many awareness literature materials available for your use. I imagine that there's plenty even in your school libraries. Your school librarians will be more than happy to order some of these things for you. You want to make sure that you choose something that's appropriate for the age level that you're working with. There's things for very young children all the way up through teens. For example, Meet Julia, a Sesame Street character, is on the autism spectrum. For mid-elementary, the book Rules the main character is a girl who has a brother who's on the autism spectrum, but there's another main character who is nonverbal and has cerebral palsy. And all books don't have to be autism specific to provide awareness themes of acceptance, friendship, bully prevention, supporting others, those kinds of things. The book Wonder isn't about autism at all, but the boy has facial anomalies, and that there was a very popular movie that came out a year or so ago. So you could read the book, you can show the movie, but there are plenty of materials out there available for you. Video content is readily available to use at your meetings to provide awareness for your students, and a lot of it's free. If you go to YouTube and do a Google search of, autism awareness for kindergarten kids or autism awareness for teens, plenty of free things will pop up there. Sesame Street, for example, has a series, Just Like You videos. They have Just Like You autism, Just Like You Down syndrome, Just Like You facial anomalies, and those are designed wonderfully for students, and I've shown all of those to my kids. There's DVD content. Intricate Minds has a great series that I would encourage you to look up. And the Temple Grandin story is it's an HBO made for movie. And it is a very, very good story, and my students have enjoyed that every time that I've shown it. So, you can either do books, you could read a chapter book, or an ongoing, it's several different meetings. You could do a Twitter book club. Our librarian did that with an ongoing book for older kids, a chapter book, or you could read a picture book, or you can show video at your meetings. In addition to the general group awareness, you might consider doing some awareness of the individual focus student. So that means that you'll be talking to the peer mentors more specifically about that student and why they behave the way that they do, and then to give them ideas on how they can help out and support that student. So for example, you might share with a group of students that Sarah doesn't like to eat lunch in the cafeteria because she has heightened senses and the noise in the cafeteria is overwhelming to her and it causes her to stress out. So she prefers to eat lunch in my room, and you're more than welcome, a few of you, to come and join her. She would enjoy your company. So if she looks like she's upset or angry when she's going through the lunch line and she bolts out of there as fast as she can, it's not because she's angry or upset. It's because she really needs to get out and get to a quiet place so that she can relax and not get stressed out. You want to make sure that if you're going to be sharing that a student has autism with their peers, that the parent has given permission for that. If they don't give permission for it, you can still do general disability awareness, but you always want to make sure that you have parent permission if you're going to be sharing that their child has autism with other kids. And then this smaller group of peers, once they have more of this information, they can work closely with that student. So for example, maybe you've targeted recess. You can point out to them that Sarah has a hard time at recess sharing. She wants to use the chalk every day. And if someone comes over and wants to use the sidewalk chalk too, she might say something that's mean or rude back at them. So you explain to the students why she does that she's working on taking turns, and that autism sometimes can make it hard for her. And then you'll have them practice what they can say and what they can do so that they can help her be able to share. You can do the same thing if it's maybe on a project in a particular classroom where a student may be struggling, maybe to share or find a role in the group so that they can take responsibility for their part without taking over the whole thing. Or perhaps it's in an extracurricular activity. Maybe if someone is a sports manager, the other managers might have to support them, because you could tell them that Caleb, he has autism, and because of his autism he gets super overexcited and stimulated sometimes at some of the track meets. And so if he starts to run around and shout and get a little hyped up, that's your opportunity to go over and say, hey Caleb, help me with the water and help me fill up these cups or whatever. So that would be an example of providing more awareness of the individual's focused student. And then there's school-wide awareness. These are just ideas that you can consider. Pick and choose what works for you, but some schools have gone really big with school-wide awareness, particularly in April, which is Autism Awareness Month. They've done posters and display cases. There have been baked goods that are decorated with autism awareness, posters and banners that have been made, put out throughout the school. Some schools have gotten t-shirts made that everyone wears. Others have chosen to do research projects and then go in and present about autism into the different classrooms in their schools. And others have done poster projects and put those up around for others to see. This is a great opportunity to practice group work, coming together as a team, researching information together, and then doing presentations up front. Two of our art students approached us and asked if they could do a Circle of Friends mural, and we said, well, of course you can, that's great. And they designed it, and the kids in our group and some of our facilitators that facilitate our group put our handprints all around it. The kids signed their names in their handprint in the year that they were going to graduate. And then on the opposite side of the hallway wall, they put a bully prevention informational flow chart, and that will be there for years to come. You'll find that Circle of Friends becomes part of the fabric of your building. It's just the way we do things. It's part of who and what we are. It becomes part of the identity of your school. This is a homecoming parade where kids could wear their t-shirts, make posters, and march with all the other extracurricular clubs. So in addition to the football team and the cheerleaders and the Skills USA group and all the other groups that represent our school for activities and clubs, Circle of Friends is right along there with them. So, in addition to communication, awareness, community building, a main focus of your meetings will be to teach social skills. You want to target whatever it is that that focus student needs to work on. In this picture, in this slide, you'll see kids are hula hooping and they're using hula hoops to demonstrate a visual of personal space because their focus student was struggling to stay out of other people's personal space. And some of the ideas of things that groups across our state have shared that they've worked on were playing with others appropriately at research, making transitions from one activity to another, maybe going from lunch back to class or recess back into the building, turn taking, conversation skills, appropriate social media use for older kids, bully prevention, appropriate hygiene. Kids will listen more carefully to peers than they will do to that nagging teacher. So it's a good time to bring some things like hygiene up. Giving and accepting compliments, what to expect and how to behave in new situations. That's a very good focus for your groups. And then really basically any lagging social skills that come up in circle of friends social situations. What you'll find is that when you provide the opportunity through your meetings for kids to get together, the social skills needs will arise that you didn't know about before. And so based on what the peers tell you and then what you observe that the kids struggle with once they all get together, those are the things that you can target for your social skills instruction at your meetings. Our students on the autism spectrum can struggle with new situations. So one thing that you can target for social skills instruction is any new situation that they may be encountering. For example, maybe they're going to be playing a new game in PE, and so you want to prep them for that. Or perhaps how to behave with a substitute teacher that might be coming next week, or what to do when there's an assembly. Anything that's new, how to behave at a birthday party, anything that's what to expect that will make them more comfortable if they've been pre-taught those things. So one of the things that we work on a lot in April is the social world of prom. What I used to find was that I would tell my students, you should go to prom, it's really fun, and are you going to go? And they would tell me, why would I go to prom? It's stupid and dumb. And what I learned was that that was just code for why would I want to put myself in a social situation when I really aren't too comfortable in social situations. I've experienced failure in those. It's a whole new scary world for me. No, thank you. I would rather stay home. So when I realized that that was what was going on, it wasn't just that they thought prom was dumb. It was that they were really scared about what to expect. We started doing really about a month of getting ready for prom. So what we did is we divided our kids up into groups at our meetings, and we gave them a Chromebook and we gave them a template so that the peers could start to respond to the prompts in the slideshow that we had put together. So what to wear, who pays, can you go without a date? Can you go with a group of kids? How much does it cost? What is post-prom all about? Do we go out to eat first? What's that like? So we do a lot of prep work around prom. We even have our show choir kids come in and do dancing lessons, so we practice dancing ahead of time. And what I found was that once we taught our kids what to expect in these situations, our attendance at prom went way up. So we meet together before prom for dinner. It's open to anybody in Circle of Friends who would like to come. We get a limo, and the kids all ride in a limo together to the prom after the dinner. And, by pre-teaching, we found that our kids are a whole lot more successful in these kinds of situations. So that could be a meeting focus as well. Teaching conversation skills is a good use of your time at meetings. What you'll find if you don't teach kids how to converse with each other is that you risk, if you have a student on the spectrum who tends to dominate one-sided conversations, they will just ramble on and on and on while the peer mentors, who are nice kids, they'll be polite and they'll listen, but that's really not teaching the kind of two-way conversations that we want our students to have. The other thing that you'll risk is that the focus student won't engage at all. Maybe they're very quiet, shy, have anxiety around conversation. Maybe they don't even know what to think about, to talk about. They don't know how to, take turns, show perspective taking and showing interest in the other person. So there's different conversation models out there and different materials that you can use. One simple model is And step 1, getting started. That's the easy part. Step 2 is small talk. What can you talk about? We teach our kids a Big 12 model. These are 12 conversation topics that you can bring up if you don't know what else to talk about. We teach them how to do ask backs. That's showing interest in the other person. So if someone asks you what you're going to be doing for the weekend, after you tell them, then in turn you ask them what they're going to be doing for the weekend. We teach them to ask more questions to keep the conversation going. So, for example, if someone says, I'm going to the movie or I went to the movies, the logical next step question would be, what did you see? Some of our students don't know how to do that, so we want to actively, specifically, directly teach them that. And then step 5 is wrapping it up. The Big 12 conversation starter topics that we teach include music, sports, current activities at school or at home or in the community, weather, school, your day, your weekend, TV shows, movies, hobbies, interests. Tell about your family. What movies do you like? Video games, pets, books. The picture at the bottom here shows our kids doing, it's kind of a version of speed dating, but it's not dating, it's conversation skills. So one side of the two groups of chairs that are facing each other stayed stationary. They stayed in place, but the kids had about 2 minutes, and then we would set a timer, and then the other row, the opposite row of students, would move down one chair so that they were quickly having these 2-minute conversations with a different student each time. And that worked out quite well. So while the activity that I just showed is great for the whole group in teaching that general conversation model, I find that I have students who need a whole lot more practice in this area. So I'll pull a small group of students and we'll really focus on diving deep into providing all the extras that they need in order to, really master good conversation skills. One idea that I picked up at a workshop that I went to this fall was to make a chart or collect data. That's what this is on the whiteboard behind these two students. And so I have the different steps. I added one that she taught in her conversation model, which is tells a story, as you can see on the board in the middle there. And that just refers to when someone asks a question and someone does the talking, the person doing the talking is telling a story. But anyway, if you look at the tally marks, what you can see is that one student told the story 5 times. That means they got a turn to talk, while the other one only spoke once. So when I started to put that data on the board, the kids could have that visual and look at it and go, oh, I dominated the conversation, and they could see that very clearly through the tick marks. So using visuals to track and analyze conversation, I found was another helpful thing to do. Another valuable tool for teaching social skills is social behavior mapping. This is based on the work of Michelle Garcia Winner and her book, Social Behavior Mapping. I highly recommend it. But basically what this does is it dissects what kids are doing and how their behavior affects others around them. So you determine what the situation is that you want to work on. So for example, maybe when it's time to line up to wash hands before lunch, Tommy wants to be first in line every time, and if he's not first in line, he'll whine or cry or even push another student out of the way. So on the top of the paper, she has blank templates in her book, or you can do them on a whiteboard or even just on a blank piece of paper, doesn't matter. You would write the situation, so lining up for lunch, and you would write down what the expected behavior is, and that's the normal behavior. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to line up, take turns with who's in front, keep your hands to your side, don't talk, whatever the procedure is for your classroom. And then the next column talks about how others feel about my behavior. So when I line up appropriately, I don't whine and I don't cry when I'm not first in line. How does that make other people feel? Makes them feel good, makes them feel comfortable, makes them feel calm. How will they treat me when I line up correctly? Well, they'll be my friend. They'll want to talk to me. They'll want to be with me. And then how do I feel based on having done the right thing? And I feel good. I feel proud. I feel happy. The other side of the board is unexpected behavior. I tell kids that's the weird behavior. That's the behavior that makes other people think, why is he or she doing that? So you go through the same headings. My behavior that's unexpected, that weird behavior would be crying if I don't get to be in first place, shoving someone else out of the line or whatever. And then the next column is how would other people feel about my behavior when I do that? They might be scared. They might get mad. They might get upset. And then how do other people treat me when I behave that way? Maybe they'll avoid me. Maybe they'll roll their eyes. And then how would I feel based on how they treat me? I might feel upset. I might feel lonely. I might feel angry. So this is something else that you can do at your meetings too that I find helpful for teaching those lagging social skills. And don't forget about game-based learning. It's a very effective way to teach social skills. The kids on the left, for example, they were timing themselves on seeing how fast they could stack their cups in the different shapes that they were able to do that. We will share all kinds of ideas on game-based learning in our virtual learning community website at the end of the webinar. But, just keep in mind that play is serious business for kids, and you can teach communication, turn taking, group cooperation, all kinds of very essential social skills through playing games. Some Circle of Friends groups choose to do service learning projects. The group at the top left, they did a Backpacks for Puerto Rico initiative where after the hurricane, they did a presentation to all the homerooms in the school, and they asked each homeroom to donate school supplies and backpacks so that they could send those off to the island. I believe that they got 36 filled backpacks sent. The kids on the right, they made blankets. This was around Thanksgiving time they started so that they could deliver them to a homeless shelter. And the kids on the bottom collected food for a food drive. Service learning projects can also be implemented in the school building as well as the community at large. The students in the top pictures here decided to do a random acts of kindness project in their school. So they generated a list and they put these acts on cards of things that they could do to be kind to one another, and they were tasked with doing the act for someone and then passing the card along. And we did an announcement to the whole school so that they knew that someone was being kind to them and that they could pass the card on and do that same act to somebody else around the building. In the picture in the lower right, another group of students from a different Circle of Friends group, they created a community garden to beautify their school. There's really no end to the social interaction opportunities that you can provide for kids at your meetings. Some weeks we've gone to the gym, played a game of kickball or wiffle ball. Other times we've gone and played board games. What I'll do is assign a certain number of peer mentors to sit at a table along with the focus students. I'm very careful in how I divide those groups up. I want to make sure that our students who need the support have it at each table. You can do scavenger hunts. One of the easiest things we did, and the kids had a blast with it, was a YouTube video contest. The kids had to submit to me ahead of time so I could take a look at them and make sure that they were all appropriate. The funniest YouTube video that they could think of had to be school appropriate. And so we showed those and we voted on them, and the videos that got the most votes, the kids got a prize. Cookie decorating has been popular. Sometimes it's just let's get together and eat lunch together and visit. Playing games of chess, arts and crafts, hobby clubs like anime, D&D, Minecraft, and Pokemon. There's a lot of opportunity there, not only for kids to get together and have fun, but inevitably social skill needs will arise. And so in playing these games, it gives you a good idea of the things that you can target for your next social skill instruction lesson. Doing out-of-school activities is another optional idea for you. Some schools choose to never do anything outside of school. They have their meetings once a week at school and that's it, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want to extend that opportunity for kids, you may. We do an out-of-school activity once a month. What I found is that elementary groups may do an outing at the end of the school year or maybe to kick off the school year if they're going to do one at all. But if the groups that go out once a month are usually middle or high school groups. And like I said, we do them once a month. We tend to let them be student generated. We ask them what kinds of things do you want to do, and you can see from the list on this slide there's multiple things. Sometimes it's going into something in the community like bowling or going to a fun park or the movies, but other times it's at school functions. For example, we do a homecoming tailgate party every single fall at the homecoming football game. We brought groups of kids to see a play that's at the school. So it can be something that's at school, but just outside of school hours. And like I said, that's optional. What I have found is that it does provide me a whole new array of social skill deficits that I didn't know about before. So, for example, when we took our kids out to get something to eat and then go to a movie, I realized that we had some students who did not know how to order at a restaurant. They'd never done that before. I've had students who've never been bowling before. And so, they learn how to, it's just a new experience for them. And if social skill needs do arise, then you can target those at future meetings. Another optional idea for you for your groups is fundraising. I want to emphasize you do not need any money to run a Circle of Friends group. I ran a Circle of Friends group with no money for over 10 years. I used material and curriculum that were already ready available at school. But if you want to raise some money, there are some benefits if you choose to do these in your groups. It promotes caring and giving back so that it's not all about me. In this picture, what you see is a group of kids doing concessions. In my school, you get to keep 50% of the money that you take in when you sell food at sporting events. So different groups, different clubs always volunteer to do it. So we make sure that we get ourselves on the schedule too. What I found is that it was a wonderful place to practice social skills. They get to practice hygiene. You have to wash your hands before you're going to touch food. How to take turns at the counter. Maybe you're going to have to make and bag up the popcorn and you don't get to be at the counter, or vice versa. You have to take turns. How to get along with others. How to put something on your calendar. You've committed to coming and working next Monday after school. Let's get that on your Google Calendar. Do we need to communicate with your mom so that you get a ride home? Okay, good. Why don't you give her a call now so that we have that all set up. So another great opportunity for teaching and practicing those communication skills in real life. Some things that other schools have done, they have used their money to help fund students at need at prom. That's what we do. So we'll pay for tuxes, tux rental for students, boys who can't afford it. We've bought dresses for girls who can't. We've paid for the before prom dinner, and we pay for a limo ride. We use it for an end of year celebration. So we have money in our account that we can take kids to do something for free. So we go to it's like a trampoline park, and we buy all the kids pizza. Some schools have chosen to use their money to design and have created Circle of Friends t-shirts for everybody in the group. Many groups use them to buy food for their meetings, to pay for students who can't afford an activity. If they can't come to the movies, we always tell the students, if you want to come to an activity but you don't have the money, make sure that you tell us, because we have money in our Circle of Friends account. And then if we want to buy, extra arts and crafts material or games or anything like that, we'll have the money in our account to do that. But once again, I do want to reiterate that fundraising is optional. You don't have to have money to run a group. And here are some other fundraising ideas. Wear jeans or a hat day, pay $1 and you can do that. Coffee shop. Some schools have gone above and beyond and they run a coffee shop every day. Coat check at indoor winter sporting events. I thought this was a pretty interesting idea. I've never done it myself, but they set up racks outside the basketball games and people pay. It's a free will offering is the way that they did it, to check their coat so they don't have to carry it into the bleachers. And they put a big sign up so people know that it's going to benefit the Circle of Friends group. People have had bake sales, a t-shirt design contest and t-shirt sale, sell bracelets, candy to promote autism awareness, and 50/50 raffles. So now you've heard about all the different types of things that you do at meetings. What I recommend is that at the beginning of the year, or at least at the beginning of each semester, that you write down a general schedule that you're going to follow. As you can see from this example, there's a mixture of community building, awareness, going and playing games, social skill instruction, which really the social skill instruction takes place at all these kinds of activities. But anyway, there's some more focused, targeted topics, as you can see from this list. There's built-in celebrations and parties. When you make this list, this schedule, it doesn't mean that you'll never deviate from it. You may decide that when you get into conversation skill teaching that you want to spend a whole lot more time on it. You may find that maybe playing board games is an opportunity to incorporate the social skill instruction that you want, and you're going to do that for a while. Maybe you'll try something and find it's a dud, or the kids are getting bored, and then you're going to go move to something else. But it's very important that you make a schedule so you have a general blueprint of where you're going to be going. And if you're going to have peer-only meetings, you can build those in as well. We found from studying the groups across our state over 10 years now that there are some obstacles that may arise. One is meeting attendance, getting kids to show up. I had one facilitator who called me and she said, I'm having a really hard time getting the peer mentors to show up at the meetings. These were high school kids. And I said, well, how are you telling them? And she said, well, we're putting a meeting notification flyer in their lockers a week ahead of time. Well, I know high school kids. They're not thinking weeks ahead of time. They don't remember. Some of them don't plan very well ahead. They don't get it on their calendars. So what I recommend is multiple ways of telling them: visual bulletin boards, emailing, texting, putting it in the school bulletin, reminding them when you see them in class or in the hallway. So that's one obstacle. Make sure that you're digging into finding out why they're not coming. If they're not, it's probably that they're not remembering. We've had a problem in certain years of too many kids wanting to join. We have Circle of Friends in our district all the way from elementary grades, middle through high school. So it's very well established. So we get kids asking to come. We don't have a problem of kids not showing up. We have a problem of getting these large groups. And the way that we respond to that is that we just have groups within a group. We have 2 facilitators, which I recommend. Finding a partner really can help. 2 heads are better than 1. You can split up the duties. My partner in crime, her name is Jen. She's another special ed teacher. She will do things like getting the materials for the activities, gathering those things up, purchasing the snacks that we use from our fundraising money, and she'll do that. I tend to do more of planning the social skill lessons and activities and those kinds of things. So, if you can find a partner, that really helps a lot. But it helps us do the group within a group, because so when we have a very large group of kids, and it's hard for anxious kids with autism spectrum disorder sometimes to enter those big groups. Reluctant focus students, we will pre-teach them what to expect. Sometimes we'll engage their parent. Their parent may offer them a reward in the beginning for just showing up at the meetings. Once they get to meet some kids, once they understand that it's going to be fun, that they get a choice in the activities and what we do, after a while, you won't have a hard time with those reluctant students. Finding committed, available peers, always be on the lookout. I'm a co-teacher. I go into math classrooms every day. I'm always on the lookout for kids that are kind and caring, and I'll say, hey, you might want to consider joining our Circle of Friends group, and we'll add peers at any time throughout the school year. You just want to make sure, because time is your enemy, that you want to stick to your schedule. You know how you show up and teach math or language arts every day? You want to show up once a week to do your Circle of Friends, because that way it's going to get done. You stick to that schedule, you'll feel good about it, and your kids will develop those bonds and those lagging skills that they're really struggling with, and the reason why you have these groups. So we're just about at the end of this webinar, but before I leave you, I want to let you know about our virtual learning community. You're more than welcome to go there. All of the ideas that were in both parts of the webinar, Webinar 1 and Webinar 2, and so much more is in this virtual learning community website. What we did was provide a place that facilitators all across our state could share success stories, ideas and resources, awareness materials and lessons, social skills teaching ideas, fundraising ideas. We have social emotional learning literature lessons that you can use with your groups. There's paperwork, there's all kinds of things, frequently asked questions. So if you go to bit.ly/COF, Circle of Friends, NE, Nebraska, you can get right into this site. It's constantly being updated whenever someone tries something new, whether it's a material, a resource, a game, an activity idea, and they want to share it. I put it on this site. So you can visit it all the time. If you email me at mary.schlieder@gmail.com, that's SCHLIEDER, I'm happy to add you to our Google group mailing list, and that way whenever something new goes up on the website, you'll get an email notification about that. But there's many ideas in here for you, and it's anything that we've talked about today is on this site, so you're very welcome to go visit that. And finally, there's a document available for you called Next Steps. It's in the virtual learning community website. If you go to bit.ly/COF Next Steps, or just in the virtual learning community website, if you go to the paperwork link, it'll take you right there. This is a blueprint document to take you through exactly what you're going to do first, second, and third, all the things that you're going to consider when you start to implement your groups. And it's designed to help you hit the ground running when you're ready to plan for your students. So if there's anything that I can ever do to help you get your groups up, just let me know. Feel free to contact me anytime. And thank you so much for all that you do for kids.